records, when I think the premise of this prosecution is a falsification. That is, Bragg is saying he's bringing a falsified business records prosecution. What he's actually trying to do is enforce federal campaign finance law, which he doesn't have any authority to do. And I think if he were being transparent about that, there would have been great outcry about it when the indictment came out. He's played his cards close to the vest from the beginning because he doesn't want to come out and say that what he's trying to do is something that the Justice Department and the Federal Election Commission, which are the two federal bureaucracies that are authorized to enforce the campaign finance laws, they looked at this case with respect to Trump and elected not to bring enforcement action because I don't think this is a campaign finance matter. Bragg is going on the premise that it is, and that
we are talking about the Portland Police Bureau. They're trying to get the rapid response team back together after they disbanded because we're anticipating more riots down in Portland.
Jonathan Turley, I want to bring you in here because here's the thing. I mean, he certainly has gotten a lifeline now, and you can hear the relief in his voice. He's got 10 days now to pay $175 million, which he can absolutely come up with. Letitia James put out a statement here where she wanted to remind the former president that, look, the court has already found, she says, that he engaged in years of fraud, and that the judgment, the $464 million judgment plus interest against Trump still
he's like,
stands
no,
here.
they
So
sued
what's
me.
next here after he pays the $175? Because
lay out their tents
this
and whatnot
appeals
as
court
they
could come
did the
back
whole Stop
and
Cop
decide
City
to
in
reject
Atlanta.
his appeal.
Now they're suing me. Now he's going to try and kick him off.
That's
the whole
right.
mess there. We're going to talk
the
about that.
problem
a lot
with
of squatter action today.
The original trial decision is really twofold.
That's
One is, did he engage
what we're
in
doing.
fraud? You know, the real estate market is rather infamous for undervaluing and overvaluing.
Audio could be better. How about that? Give me a second. Oh, there we go. Yeah, some of these things autoplay. It's hard to manage. Okay, thank you. Yep, perfect. There we go. All right. Yeah, they autoplay, and if I have the earphones plugged in, I won't hear it, but I can see over here, and I got a monitor. I killed that action. Then I got to remember to turn that back on when we go again and we watch a video. All right, let's get into our first one here. Squatters over squatters. Audio could be better. You guys didn't like that in stereo? Just doesn't it sound like you're going crazy? Hey, I'm hearing two soundtracks. What's going on? Oh, this is annoying. Sean's talking and there's a bunch of rah, 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 rah in the background. Yeah, I have to watch on my monitor here. I got so many different audio streams going that gotta make sure it's all good. All right, here we go. Tristan, we're going to start here. A company called Squatter Squad. Hit the microphone. That's not good. We've got new microphone placement. Need to change that up. A company called Squatter Squad out of California, of all places. They are sending squatters packing because they are basically going in as home inspectors to enter the premises, change the locks, and send those squatters out the door, wherever they're going to squat next. Out of here. That's what we're getting into today. Let's get into it. Here we go. All right, got a good video on this one. Let's do a little video action. We'll unlock the sound. Here is Squatter Squad.
We would like you guys to remove if it was already no. You guys are in California though.
Oh yeah. No, we put a 24-hour notice of inspection, and I have a power of attorney, so we can come in and do an inspection. There's nothing illegal with that.
No, well, the police are going to come.
Yeah, that's fine. We're coming in.
Right? You got to go to court though.
Yeah. No, okay.
Okay. I understand.
Yeah, is this in court?
Look, let's just let the
Here's the deal. Here's the deal. This is a civil matter, and you. Okay, well, he wants to. He wants.
We'll let the police do that.
No, that's fine.
This guy still can't be here.
Well, we're coming in. We're coming in.
Okay, well, we'll see.
Yeah.
That's the owner right there, Squatter Squad.
I'm on the phone with the sergeant.
I have a power of attorney, so to do the inspection. So
doesn't matter. It still has to go to court. Still has to go to the court. We were never served with a 3-day notice, dude.
This isn't a 3-day notice. This is a home inspection.
Okay, well, no.
This is a home inspection.
No, you guys already came and tried to bust in the last time. You guys didn't make a good impression the first time.
The sergeant said I have the right to be here, so they can call the sergeant. We're coming in, you guys. We're coming in. Yeah, we're coming in. We have the right. So we're coming in. Yeah.
You get the feeling they're going to go in? Yeah, they are.
I'm gonna press charges.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Take me to court. Take me to court. This isn't your property. You don't play.
Oh, we're done?
Yeah.
Spicy.
Are you on the lease? Yeah. You're on the lease? Show me you're on the lease. Show me you're on the lease. You know you're not on the lease. Get your dog.
Rip out those doors. Rip out those screen doors. Get them out. Just get them out. I'll go to the maiden shirt.
Go ahead.
Okay.
The guy with the maiden shirt, he's like, oh, what happened?
Everything's safe. Okay, the owner's guys are gonna spend a little time in there.
Okay.
Porta potty. Crew. All right. So what I would say there, the big thing that I think people need to understand, and let's go to the Squatter Squad. Let's go to the Squatter Squad website. We're going to read the article. Fox got a good article on it. But squatter removal and prevention services. This is right from the website. I am not being sponsored for this, but Squatter Squad, you wanted me to do a few podcasts, interlay this in on some squatter content, because we've got squatter content for days. It's just happening all over. People just, law doesn't care. We're just going to do our thing. So what they do, one of the things, so they've got squatter ejection, they've got squatter prevention, got security camera installation and monitoring. We've got consulting, job types. Okay, here's what they will handle. Residential, apartment and condo, Airbnb. You know what? I want you guys to be able to see this. Job types. Here's the top. Squatter Squad, squatter removal prevention services. You scroll down to the bottom. Job types. They'll do residential, apartment and condo, Airbnb, commercial, and land. That pretty much covers everything, right? Except with light industrial or high rise or some crazy stuff like that. We do not, this is the important part here, remove non-paying tenants that won't leave. Now, why is that? Let's do this view. Why is that? Because that's a civil matter and that's a lease agreement. That is a lease agreement that has gone sideways, and you're going to have to get an attorney and you're going to have to go through the eviction process. Whereas these guys didn't have a leg to stand on, because not one of them that was in that house, not one of them actually had a lease. There was no lease. Just, didn't have one. So they were literally legally squatting. And so they're able to just toss them. And that's why the cops were able to do their thing. Yeah, nobody here has a lease. Nobody has. And the second thing is they will not do is remove family members that were allowed to previously live on the property. You've been given permission. You've been given a verbal license. You're part of the family, that kind of thing. Because you get into some domestic situations. And my guess is that Squatter Squad doesn't want the liability of stepping in between something that they can't control. So that's legally outside of the bounds of what they're doing. You heard him say, this isn't a 3-day notice. You got to give 3 days notice in California to a tenant that has rights to come and enter the premises. Well, you don't on a building inspection if you think something is, needing addressing. So we're coming in on building inspection. That's what you heard the guy say. So that's their angle. We're just going to go in and do a little building inspection. You get that door open. They get their guys in there. They start hauling stuff out. All 12 people leave because they know the gig is up. They're out of there. They're done. I think it's great. God bless America, right? America. This is the way we should do it. We're going through a period right now where people think that they can squat just wherever the F they want and that this is okay. It's not. There's going to have to be pushback. And if you're going to have to pay, Squatter Squad, they seem to have their drill down. What else do we have? About Squatter Squad. We're in, we're out, they're gone. I think it's great. A property must be secured or liberty cannot exist. John Adams. I mean, this is just great. Legally ejecting squatters since 2018. It's their byline. Just, here's what we're doing. We're ejecting some squatters. There's the crew. There's the owner. Got the R story on there. Let's read the story. I think this is a great one. Squatter Squad. Because there's just so much lunacy running around in the world, right? Just so many crazy people with crazy ideas. And, this is my house. No, it's not. Get the F out. We're the Squatter Squad. Video shows a team of Los Angeles home inspectors giving a group of a dozen squatters a reality check before they entered the home, changed the locks, and boarded up the windows. The police are going to come, one of the squatters tells the inspectors in the front yard in cell phone video recorded earlier this month. In the front yard, we heard that. This is the San Fernando Valley home. That's fine, the inspector replies. We're coming in. And it was very clear that inspector was going to go in. Coming in. We're coming in. And then they just ripped the door off. Yep, going in. That's nutty. A group known as the Squatter Squad took the video and says it has been legally removing squatters from private property since 2018. Have you guys heard of this crew before? I haven't. Maybe it's because you just haven't seen a news story. And I haven't heard of anybody here in the Pacific Northwest either. But maybe things have just gotten so bad, and we know they have. Things have gotten so bad in California that it gives rise to a company like this that has a very narrow, we'll do this, we won't do that, because of the legality of where they're operating, which is in not a gray area per se, but I would say that they are walking a fine line. How about that? How about that for, let me get this mic squared away. Sorry, folks. They got to, they got to walk a super, and the reason I don't have it there is because I bang it with my hand. I'll work that out later. They walk a fine line from the standpoint of what they can and can't do. So what we're seeing and what I've reported on repeatedly has been people who don't pay their lease. And then they have, one of these NGOs come in and bring them current for 6 months, and then they immediately default again, don't pay rent. They're just abusing the system. tenants abusing the system. But what we're seeing here is just straight up squatters. Just people just, this is where we're going to stay. They use various legal techniques applicable on a case-by-case basis to remove people who invade homes and refuse to leave. Do you ever read these stories and go, what happened? How did we get here? Since when is this acceptable? What happened? Yeah, squatters got into my house. I just had to let them get all my stuff. They took all my family antiques. You hear those stories and you're like, that is horrible. Why can't normal human beings just take back their property? Well, because the politicians that you have voted for have enacted laws that protect these tenants or people with rights to real estate, protect them so hard. Washington State is one of the worst. Seattle is one of the absolute worst. And you know what kills me is that you make all these restrictions on landlords, basically leaving the tenants the ones in charge. They've got all the rights. Landlords don't have any. And then, you're shrinking the pool of rental properties because nobody wants to be a landlord. You're shrinking the pool of rental properties by not being able to build enough housing. You're not able to build enough affordable housing. Nobody's building affordable housing here in Seattle. They're all donating to the Affordable Housing Fund, but no actual homes are going up. And then the same people that are promoting all of this, we need these regulations to protect the tenants, are bitching that rents are going through the roof. And you're left with, well, yeah, that caused that. What did you expect? What did you think would happen? Rents are going to continue to go through the roof. Right now in real estate, we have no supply. And I'm going to do a deep dive on the National Association of Realtors, their big settlement. There's a settlement with Compass as well. Hundreds of millions of dollars in these settlements. And now the media is glomming onto, well, because of this settlement, prices are going to come down. Real estate agents are going to be gone forever. And it's just simply not true. That's just a bunch of hysteria that it's going to have basically zero impact on the real estate market. Zero impact. Because any of the big MLSs dealing with the fallout of the NAR deal have already made adjustments to the way that they operate and with the language that we have and all that good stuff. It's not a deal. It has basically zero impact. And I'll get into that. But there's so many things out there that are going on, squatting wise, tenant wise, tenants that won't leave. It's crazy especially here on the West Coast, how pro tenant things are. And how about on a national level with an eviction moratorium? I'm sorry, what? People aren't paying. You want to have the landlords continue paying the mortgage? It's like, what in the F is that? What was that all about? You're protecting an entire class. Hey, can't help it if you lost your job, still got to pay your rent. That's how this works. Oh, no, that's not what we're doing. So article goes on to say, this was a very tricky and complex job, said Lando Thomas, a Squatter Squad member. I need a Squatter Squad hat. Did they have merch on that website? I don't think they did they? Squatter Squad, I need you to get some cool logos. Well, what did it say? Something about throwing squatters out since 2018. I'd love to t-shirt right there, right? With their logo. You bet. The intruders were under the impression that any entry into the house required a 3-day notice obtained through the court. However, they were wrong. You hear these tenants parrot this just nonsense. You got to have a 3-day notice. No, that's not what we're coming in at. Okay, but you got to have a 3-day notice. No, Squatter Squad guy was correct. A building inspection only requires a 24-hour notice and does not have to go through the court, he said. That's the loophole. Want to bet that gets cinched up? Yeah, probably. Some stinky far left, you-know-what, will go ahead. This isn't fair. An entire class of squatters are being abused. They were just babbling nonsense, he added. They were. We could hear them. The squatters were literally just... There's 12 of them in there. 12 of them in there. Middle of the day, right? What are they doing? What are they doing in there? Who knows? However, the squatters were seen taking their own video, repeatedly insisting the inspectors had to go through the court before entering and warning that they had called the police. All right. Okay. And, if I'm a cop and somebody calls me out to somebody, if I don't know what the deal is, I'm going to back off and go, well, you know what? If you got a lease, that's fine. Let's take a look at it. Let's see. You don't have a lease. You look like a bunch of squatters. I'm going to say, hey, this is under control. Nobody's being bludgeoned here. I'm going to let this one go. We're going to press charges, says one of the dirty squatters with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth and holding a can of soda. We're going to press charges. For what? What for? For having a building inspection done? All right. Okay. I mean, we'll see what the court says about that. It's totally legal. That's fine, the inspector replies. Take me to court. You know these squatters aren't going to do that, right? They're just not. They're just not. So I think this is the same video. Yeah, that's Squatter Squad. The owner sent a team of workers who showed up with their own porta potty and tools. Why'd they have to have a porta? Maybe they're doing a remodel on the property. And so, yeah, need to have, although it looked like, I mean, if people were living in there, there's bathrooms in there. So are we turning off the water? What are we doing? Are we just making sure that we are stamping the fact that, hey, we got a construction site going on, do not come back? Maybe. Or maybe they're doing a massive renovation. I don't know. Who knows, right? Whatever it takes, though, to get them out. Video shows that when officers did arrive, they stood in the street and let the inspectors do their work. The inspectors, it's great. The squatters wound up packing their belongings and leaving before the Squatter Squad installed no trespassing signs, put a new lock on the gate, and boarded up the windows. As you do, secure that property. I've talked about over in Seattle, where I'm at all the time, there's a new construction project going up, and they've literally got, I was there this last weekend, they've got plywood up over the entire, basically, first floor, because I'm guessing they've had so many problems with squatters and with the homeless and with the insane and those on drugs. There's a homeless encampment literally just up the hill. It's about a half block and across the street. There's just been, it's underneath Interstate 5. And they're always, somebody's always got a tent. Somebody's always got a bunch of stuff going on. I assume they come down from there and go to this new construction project where I think these units start at like $1 million. They're townhomes attached, maybe 8 of them in one complex, but they've just got all of this plywood over the first floor. Just a terrible look. Hey, come look at our new construction project overlooking Lake Washington or Lake Union. And don't mind the plywood. Plywood, that won't be there when you buy the unit. You'll be able to see out the windows. Can't see out the windows in the main floor right now. Earlier this month, police in New York City arrested a woman who said a group of squatters moved into her $1 million house and refused to leave. And because the tenant there said that they had a lease, a valid lease, yeah, that whole thing went sideways and the woman was arrested. That was a crazy story. She had inherited the property from her parents when they died, then found squatters living inside. Call Squatter Squad. Evicting dirty squatters since 2018. She called the police, who escorted 2 strange men off the property, according to local ABC affiliate. However, when she changed the locks, one of the squatters came back with another police officer and accused her of breaking into the house. She was escorted out in handcuffs, but police declined to press charges on the burglary allegation. Because you can't steal your own house. Yeah, that's a thing. You can't steal your own house. The New York Police Department spokesperson told Fox News Digital that she had been released with the summons for unlawful eviction and was not arrested. Yeah, I'm going to have to serve you up with unlawful eviction. I mean, she's getting squatters out. I mean, that's where the whole thing has just gone wildly sideways, hasn't it? You should just be able to take, a couple of your big guys, go in there, grab them by the hair, drag them out the front door, kick them to the curb, go back in, grab their stuff, and toss it out on the street. That's what you should be able to do. But you can't, because we live in a litigious age and everybody's going to sue everybody and everybody's got rights that doesn't deserve them. And it's just a bunch of ridiculousness, isn't it? It's ridiculousness. But what we're seeing And the reason I wanted to do this story today is we are seeing more and more stories of what I would call vigilante evictions, where the people are just going in, and I don't care what it takes. If you got to threaten people, then do what you got to do. I'm seeing more and more stories of that, and I don't blame people. I don't blame people. As a real estate professional, it makes me nervous because people are putting their homes at risk because you've got these nut jobs that go to these organizations that put out a lot of money for people doing illegal things that they claim to be, you know, they have rights. They have rights. And these companies that bail out, you know, people from all these protests and whatnot, and then they bail out tenants who haven't paid just because they don't want to pay. It's not that they can't pay. They have a job. They have 2 brand new cars in the driveway, like the squatter, the non-paying tenant here in Bellevue that I covered. I mean, the guy's got 2 new cars and he can't make a $4,500 a month mortgage payment. All right. Okay. So somewhere in there, his priorities are just wildly upside down, right? Why should I make my $4,500 payment? That's a lot. And it's not a fancy home. It's, you know, it's a single story. What is that? About 1,700 square feet, I think, something like that. But it's in a great neighborhood. It's in a really nice neighborhood of Bellevue. And 4,500 isn't, that's pretty much average rent, even for a 3-bedroom. It's not crazy. It's just, this is a really expensive area. And so you are going to find people that squat, and you're going to hear about more and more cases because housing has become such a premium. It's taking up so much percentage-wise of people's income. And, you know, with the lack of supply that we have in the real estate market, there's just going to be more and more pressure put on housing in general. And then you have knuckleheads out there doing the squatting thing. Nobody wants to be a landlord. You know, it's one of those situations where you used to be able to just lock your home up. Say you're doing a remodel and your contractor can't come in for a month. You buy the house, you know, your contractor's not going to be there for a bit. You go by and check on it maybe once a week. Now it's almost like you need to pay somebody to just move in there to keep the squatters from breaking that window and basically entering and then just taking up residence in your unit, because that is happening on the regular. That is how literally a company like Squatter Squad sets up a business model, finds a narrow, you know, lane to operate in. And that's what they're doing. So I think it's great. I think there should be more of that out there because people are at their wits' end trying to legally hold their homes together. And you've got these nut jobs that are protected by the politicians that have been elected in these areas. So you get what you pay for. You get what you voted in. And you don't see this down in Texas. You don't see this in Oklahoma. You can still take people and just throw them out on the street, right? And you just can't. You've got, you know, more laws now than you used to. But for the most part, you know, unless you're in one of the downtown areas with super liberal leadership, you're going to be able to, if somebody, you know, takes your property, you're going to take it right back. And there's not even going to be a discussion. It's just going to be boom, done, and game over. Whereas on the West Coast here in California, Oregon, and Seattle, we are so pro tenants' rights that it just hurts. I mean, it's mind blowing the level of protection that these criminals have, and landlords. It's basically just have to fork out. Just got to keep paying. Make it rain, landlord. Make it rain, and that's what you've got going on. So I appreciated Squatter Squad. I thought this is a great story. And if you're in Southern California, they work exclusively in Southern California. Or if you see other news stories like this, hit me up. There's an email on our channel and you can send stuff to me. And a lot of people do that. Otherwise, you can check out our Discord channel. I've got threads in there where I post all of my podcast stories, and you can take a look at that as well. All right, I'm going to wrap up this one. So thank you so much for being with me at this point in the podcast. Love to have you subscribe, hit that notification bell, all that good stuff. But again, thanks for being here, and I'll catch up with you in the next one. Live streamers, I'm not going anywhere. We got more stuff to cover. We've got stuff to talk about. Let me get into my next one. Buy a little dog with a big bark. There's something to be said about walking up to a door and hearing a dog bark on the other side, right? You're like, oh, yeah, maybe this isn't the house that I squat in. Isn't that right? Landlords have one of the most dangerous jobs. Yeah. You know, I remember being a very, very young man and walking into a detached garage as an appraiser. I was probably 19 or 20. Not a ton of experience, but I'd already been out in the field for probably 3 or 4 years. So I had some experience. I remember walking into a detached garage and there was this big, big dude passed out asleep. And when I opened up the door, I could see that I woke him up. And this is in South Seattle, not the greatest area in the world. And there was that split second where he sat up, looked at me, and I looked at him. And I'm like, yep, hey, how you doing? I'm the appraiser. And the guy's just like shaking off the night before. It's scary stuff. You run into people like that. He eventually got up, got his backpack together and kind of walked out. But he was literally trespassing, and I was there doing the appraisal, and there was nobody else around because the house was vacant. And yeah, you know, some of those things you have where you're like, yeah, this isn't the greatest thing ever. This guy, you know, he's twice as big as me. I would have gone sideways had there been a little confrontation. But I was there, you know, with my measuring tape and my camera. Like, I'm just looking at the whatever it was that I was looking at. So, yeah, landlords do have, did you go to the beach? Yep, nice suntan. No, that is just, that is this past weekend. I was out doing gardening here in Seattle, and it's really warm here in this office. So brings out the flesh tones, I guess it is. What else are we talking about? Huge Doberman pincher. All right, let's get going on podcast numero dos. Get this lined up. All right, Tristan, here we go. So we've got a good deed gone bad. We've got a squatter that sued an Atlanta property owner who allowed temporary free stays for the Stop Cop City protesters. Imagine, oh yeah, go ahead, squat on my property. It'll be fine. Now they don't want to leave, and they've sued the guy. Let's get into it. Here we go. Let's check out Atlanta, see what's happening there. Pretty sure we're going to go with this one. Yeah, here we go.
For years, he says squatters have been living on his Southeast Atlanta. He's frustrated after he says people have been living on his land without permission for years. He says he's frustrated after he says people have been living on his land without permission for years. He says squatters have been living on his Southeast Atlanta property since the pandemic. Fox 5's Mary Smith breaking it all down for us tonight.
The owner of this 9-acre property tells us he plans to build fencing around the front of the property in an effort to keep people out.
It's frustrating that I'm having to spend so much money. I spent $10,000 on cleaning up garbage from vagrants.
Atlanta native.
What did you expect? All right, here's a little background. So this guy, he says later in the video, he says that he is not on either side, whether the police, you know, authority, hey, we're building this Stop Cop City, we're building this Cop City, this $91 million training facility for police. But he's also going to build affordable housing here. And he knowingly let 4 of the Stop Cop protesters live on his land and did it during the pandemic. Now there's about 12 of them. The entire medical crew of Stop Cop City is living on his property, and one of them suing him.
David Morris, who now lives in California, owns this 9-acre property in Atlanta's Lakewood area. It's the site of his former nonprofit, Lakewood Environmental Arts Foundation. He said about 10 years ago, he started letting 4 people live on the property rent-free if they helped care for the land. But during the COVID pandemic, he closed the nonprofit and noticed even more people staying on his property.
The people who are living on the lands started having other people live on the land, their friends. I tried to file eviction, and the city of Atlanta said, sorry, we have a moratorium on evictions right now.
He says now, years later, he has about 8 people living on the property and was contacted by code enforcement to clean it up.
The last month, I've gone through 5 dumpsters.
And he says in recent months, at least one person living on the property filed a counterclaim for $190,000.
That was dismissed, and there was no actual that counterclaim because they didn't show up in court. So it will take, I'm predicting another 30 days before the marshals will call me to schedule a time for me to have 5 people here to move everything from there to the street. I did get a writ of possession on Friday.
About a year ago, Atlanta police visited the area where activists said about 24 of them were detained.
The entire medical staff of Stop Cop City camped on this land, and there's about 30 campers. Mm-hmm. And the police came in and pulled them out of their tents. I'm neutral. I'm not on either side.
Morris says he just wants everyone off his land so he can clean it up to build affordable housing.
We're going to build just a big fence here and a gate here and put no trespassing signs. I'm not going to build it until all the tenants are out and, I start getting this place cleaned up.
In Atlanta, Mary Smith, Fox 5 News.
So the guy lives in California, and he's trying to maintain a 9-acre parcel in Atlanta that has known squatters on it that he allowed to live there. And when you allow that to happen, things tend to escalate just a scooch, right? Just a tiny little scooch. This guy had an idea. I mean, he acts surprised, but it was interesting that he also said, yeah, I'm neutral. I'm not on the police side. I'm not on the Stop Cop City protester side, but he's letting them live on his land. And then he bought it as a nature conservation project-ish thing, but he no longer lives there. He lives in California. This is in Atlanta, not exactly next door. There's so many pieces to this story. And then I just let 4 guys live there to take care of it. Okay, you get what you pay for, which they were paying you nothing. And they then bring in their other, and it's close to the Stop Cop City. So if we go back, here's the Stop Cop City protesters throwing fireworks. Well, I'm not going to run these videos, but yeah, this is what we got going on. They're throwing over this fence. They're throwing them at the cops here. We had that going on. And we have 2 Stop Cop City protesters chained themselves to construction equipment in Midtown. Remember, the Stop Cop City is outside of Atlanta, just on the outskirts. And it is not in downtown, in Midtown. But the company that's building the Stop Cop City is building another project. And a bunch of these knuckleheads from Stop Cop City, they went and attached themselves to equipment in a job unrelated to Stop Cop City. It's kind of like the protesters here in Seattle that went to the Seattle City Council meeting because they're upset that there's no housing down in the city of Tukwila, totally unrelated city from Seattle, that there's no housing for the illegal immigrants there. So they were told, hey, go to Seattle. They'll listen to you. Well, Seattle didn't listen. And also 6 of those protesters from that deal where they were in City Hall, and the mayor basically just said, not the mayor, but the city council president said, Sarah Nelson said, arrest them, just take them out. They're pressing charges. So City of Seattle will press charges on those stinky protesters because they don't shower. They just don't shower a lot. So that's why I say stinky. I'm not exaggerating for the benefit of drama. They literally smell. If you've been to a protest, they smell. That comes with the territory. That's just what's going on. So an Atlanta property owner is frustrated. He has concerns. He wants to get to the root cause of things. Those are all things that indicate nothing, and nothing is going to happen. When you say, I'm going to investigate the root causes, we need to get to the root causes, think of the word nothing, because that is literally what's going to result from the whole roots cause thing. So he's frustrated after he says people have been living on his land without permission for years. They're called squatters, and they're quite numerous, and especially in wooded areas. And it sounds like you got 9 acres. That's perfect. That's perfect for squatters. Come in, do their own thing. David Morris, who now lives in California, says squatters have been living in his Southeast Atlanta property since the pandemic. It's been quite an ordeal getting them to leave. What about Squatter Squad? Do we need a Squatter Squad in Atlanta, in Georgia? However, according to his attorney, David Pierre, they were granted writ of possession on March 21st. Ooh, not good. Not good. Oh, his attorney, David Pierre. Okay. So legally then they've got a leg to stand on, but then after that, it's got to wait for that the sheriff to come by, right, and do the actual eviction process. They said it's going to be 30 days. These squatters can do a ton of damage to a property in those 30 days. Morris says he now plans to install fencing to keep the undesirable, stinky people out. Meanwhile, he says he was contacted by code enforcement to clean up the property. Hey, we see you got a real mess there. Yeah, it's the squatters. Don't care. Clean it up. 10 grand. What did he say? He'd gone through 5 dumpsters, so $2K a pop, something like that. Nutty, right? Kill the sound over here. It's frustrating that I'm having to spend so much money. I spent 10 grand on cleaning up garbage from vagrants. He didn't say squatters. He called them vagrants. All right. Okay. His 9-acre property is the site of his former nonprofit, Lakewood Environmental Arts Foundation. So I found it kind of ironic that a do-gooder lets some stinky squatters on his property, and one of them ends up suing him. What's happened to that lawsuit? Absolutely nothing. And why? Because the stinky squatters, they couldn't work out how to get to court. They probably could have tied him up for, forever. All you got to do is show up. You don't have to have, all this legal on your side. You just got to show up. And then the judge will be like, well, I guess we'll need to, stay a continuance on this case. We'll give the dirty, stinky squatters some time to get their story together. Don't really care. It's what we're doing. That's how judges operate, right? He said about 10 years ago, he started letting 4 people live on the property rent-free if they help care for the land. See, do-gooding got you nowhere. However, during the pandemic, he closed the nonprofit and noticed even more people staying on his property. Are you shocked? Are you surprised? Hey, we get to go live in this 9-acre compound. It's really close to Cop City. We can use it as backup. Guys letting us stay there. You want to come stay? We'll party. Let's party. And they did. And then this guy is surprised. Hey, there's 2,000 of them now. Hey, there's 30 of them that the cops are going to come check out. It's because they all retreated after that they had a handful of them living in the trees so the construction company wouldn't come down and clear it out. Remember the fencing I showed you just a few minutes ago? Yeah, that was part of that whole transition period. And then they had one of them that was inside there, Tortuguilla or whatever his name, Little Tortoise, I think is what his nickname meant. But he got killed because he took a shot at a sheriff. And lo and behold, the sheriffs in Atlanta, they fired back. I know it's hard to imagine. You take a pop at a cop and they shoot back. Interesting. So there's all this uproar over this was just out and out murder. He had his hands up when he was shot. All right. Okay. Whatever. You're illegally squatting on a known city construction project. And when the police come through and tell you to get the F out and you don't, and you monkey around and yell at them from your tent, and you take a shot at them, things are not going to end up well for you. Period. End of story. Just done. And that dude was done. I'm not sure if we're supposed to call him a dude or not. I think he was trans. They, them, whatever. Dead? How about that one? Dead. He's dead now. So the people who were living on the land started having other people live on the land, their friends, said Morris. I tried to file eviction, and the city said, nope, moratorium on evictions right now. He says now, years later, he has about 8 people living on his property, some of whom he does not know. This guy, I mean, come on now. Come on now. This is just how this goes. You can't let people take an inch, because what are they going to take? They're going to take the whole mile, right? He says at least one person filed a counterclaim against him for $190,000. For what? Doesn't say, right? Not the point. These dirty, stinky squatters, they just make stuff up and tie you up in court and make it very difficult to get you off the land. Hey, we got a lawsuit going on. All right, who's got the lease? I got a lease. That isn't a lease. That's a piece of paper that has your name on it and it says tenant. That doesn't really mean anything. So many of these stories, when you do the deep dive and look at them, it's you figure out these people are just working the system. And the judge sitting up there has 18 cases that they got to solve before lunchtime. So they're just booking through. They're just cranking out these cases after case after case. And you can see how, and if they're totally, siding with the tenant, with tenant law, if you have anything even remotely close to a claim, it's going to be heard in court. You as the landlord, oh no, you're the dirty devil. You are the devil. That's what it's come down to in 2024. That is how landlords are seen. You have money, you can go to the bank because you once did to buy the property. Therefore, you can go to the bank, you can take out more money. Who knows how? You're going to do a cash out refinance, something along those lines. That is literally what these left-wing politicians were saying when we had this eviction moratorium going on. They came out and said, well, the landlords, they got a loan once, they can get another loan. Meanwhile, the tenants aren't paying anything, and you've got cases like this stacking up left and right. Because why should people move out if there's a mortgage, an eviction moratorium? They have no incentive. They're not going anywhere. Hey, this is close to the Stop Cop City thing. We can shuffle back and forth. We can go, I don't know how far it was because I don't know where this guy's home was, but it's close enough for Stop Cop City to basically make it home base for their medical crew. When I was down in Oregon, I was down with my son Brennan, who's now no longer with us. We were covering the Portland riots, and it was probably night 100, night 110, something like that, of these nightly riots that had been going on. And, some of the stuff I saw there was just, it was just absolutely nutty how these protesters acted. And one of the crazy things is they'd bring their own ambulance to a protest, to a mostly peaceful protest. They've got a bunch of people that have medical training. The whole thing is just, it's so wonky. Oh yeah, retreat to the back. There's the ambulance. And that's one of those things that I was like, okay, they do have medical personnel. They have people that are trained, because during these protests, it is not peaceful. It is war. It is absolute war with the police. And they know people are going to get hurt. So they've got medics on board. And it sounds like the medics were making this guy's property, their squatting territory. So the $190,000 counterclaim, that was dismissed, and that counterclaim, because they didn't show up in court. No show. Had they even just showed up, probably would have got some kind of stay, some kind of continuance, right? We couldn't work it out. Too high last night. We couldn't really figure out what we're going to say today. So, Your Honor, we would like an extension. Okay, but just this one time. And then they get a free attorney involved. You hear about it all the time. It happens all the time. So the guy is saying, the property owner is saying, so it'll take, I'm predicting, another 30 days before the marshals will call me to schedule a time for me to have 5 people here to move everything from there to the street. Squatter squad, right? Squatter squad. This is in Atlanta. Hey, you guys come out to Atlanta for me. I'll pay you a travel premium, first class seat. Get these bastards out. I did get rid of possession on Friday. Okay. That's what New was saying earlier. Yeah. About a year ago, Atlanta police visited the area where activists against the construction of the planned Atlanta Public Safety Training Center said about 24 of them were detained. That was during the shooting. That was during Tortilla or whatever his nickname was. Little Tortoise got killed. Morris said he was in California when someone called him to tell him what was going on. The entire medical staff of Stop Cop City camped on this land. Oh, you should be proud. There was about 30 campers, and the police came in and pulled them out of their tents, said Morris, who says he has no political ties to the situation. That's nonsense. He's got a stake to the property. He wants the stinky people off. And so now he has to side with the police. And the way he is doing that is he's saying, I'm not taking any sides. I just want my property free and clear. Now we're going to build some affordable housing. I'm going to take in drug addicts. It's going to be low barrier housing. It's going to be the greatest thing ever. I'm going to allow trees to have forts in them. We're all going to live like Ewoks. Yeah, just... You're like, if you just rented to some normal people, you wouldn't have these issues. You wouldn't have to be kicking out 30 people from your property. So he has no political ties to the situation. I'm neutral. Yeah, I'm not on either side. Well, for the moment, you are not pro Stop Cop City. You are Stop Cop City. That's what this guy is. But because he's got a stake in it with this property, he wants to appear to, he's neutral. Right. He tells Fox 5 he just wants everyone off of his land so he can clean it up to build affordable housing. So noble, so noble. We're going to build just a big fence here and a gate, but no trespassing signs, and not going to build it until all the tenants are out, said Morris. Start getting this place cleaned up. 5 dumpsters, probably 10 dumpsters later, still going, $2,000 a pop. There was a lot of stuff, and the pictures earlier, there was just crap. Just crap. Biohazard, because they've just been pooping in that forest. They're just doing their thing, right? Doing their thing. And that's what they do, is they abuse the land and they abuse their rights and they abuse people that own real estate. And we're just seeing more and more and more of that. So this one was a story about a property owner that I would say is a cautious tale. This was a cautious tale. Here's what happens when you're a do-gooder and you allow people to take possession of your real estate for free. That's what happens to you. $10,000 in dumpster fees. And he's probably got, what, $5,000 in attorney fees, although it's Atlanta. And who knows, right? He's going to pay some money for legal fees, one way or the other. So, cautionary tale, don't let people take possession of your real estate unless you have got what you would consider an ironclad lease. And even then, you can tie somebody up for years, literally years. We're still seeing people that have been tied up since the pandemic. People have brought their lease current and then they, bring in an attorney and they just start mucking it up. And it's just, it's absolute insanity. But that's the world we live in 2024. And that's why your pool of rentable real estate is ever shrinking. Because, most of the real estate out there, some of it is owned corporate. Yes, of course. But mom and pop have historically been the providers of so much single family rental properties. And it's just not that case anymore because of stuff like this, the cautionary tale. All right, Tristan, we're going to do the outro here. So that's it for me on this one. Thank you so much for being here. I'd love to have you subscribe, hit that notification bell. Check us out. We're releasing 2 a day, Monday through Friday. I do a live stream Tuesdays and Thursdays, 11 o'clock my time. Love to have you jump in there. Also, if you're not familiar, at the 9 a.m. premiere, Seattle time, my time, 12 o'clock East Coast, I'm typically online, so I'm in the live chat. So if you want to say hi, Sean, and see if I'm real on the live chat as well, I'm usually there Monday through Friday. I miss a day probably once a week. I'm doing, real estate stuff or something ridiculous like that, trying to help out one of my brokers or figure out a solution on an appraisal gig deal. Yes, I know, stupid stuff like that. But that's what we're doing. Thanks again for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now. Live stream people, don't go anywhere. DDT Shoots, thank you so much. Great take on current events. Love the sprinkles of humor. We could do this without humor, but it's just not any fun, right? Plus, you got to make fun of people sometimes. You just do. I mean, protesters are fair game. Squatters are fair game. Tenants that have not paid, that do not pay on purpose, they are fair game. Anybody on the far left, they are fair game, right? Just, we're going to make fun of them because that's what you do. Because, we try and come up with, arguments and reasoning as to why these situations are ridiculous. But at the end of the day, sometimes you just got to make fun of people. That's America, right? America. We are currently having a coffee cup made up. I believe that's happening right now. That's you guys have been sending me this message a lot. DEI, not equals, didn't earn it. There's a big pushback on DEI right now. If you don't know what DEI is, it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it literally, most of the time, it indicates you didn't earn it. You didn't earn something. So because of your skin color, we're going to give it to you. Like, it's too hard to pass the bar exam in the state of Washington. So because of that, racism, we're going to get rid of the bar. Literally, that's what we're doing. We're getting rid of the bar. How ridiculous is that? Well, we're going to have a coffee cup that says DEI equals didn't earn it. And then on the other side, it'll say, news for reasonable people. So check out the merch. Yeah, I hate pitching merch, but it's funny. Because, we've got some funny stuff on our merch. You should take a look at that. It's on YouTube, I believe. Do we have another merch site? Probably. Got a lot of stuff going on. All right. You know what? We're going to talk about Portland. Speaking of Portland, we're going to talk about Portland next. I'm going to get a little water here. And for those of you who send me the money, thank you so much. It is much appreciated. I always try and look at that and go, hey, somebody took the time to send a little bit of money. Doesn't have to be much. It's more the thought that counts, because so often we're demonetized here. So I have not talked about this, but we were demonetized from November 7th on our current platform, demonetized from November 7th until February the 4th. And it wasn't because of it was because of our content, but it was an interpretation of the way that we were putting up short form content. And it was like, if we would have known that, we're violating this policy, we would have taken it down, or we would have made alterations. But we thought we were within the confines of what was going on. The powers that be were pushing short form content, meaning short, minute long or less videos. We apparently didn't fill that right criteria, and we got demonetized, meaning we made no money. I worked for free November, December, January, into February. And it was my birthday. It was November 7th. That was my birthday. So that was my birthday present for me. The next 3 months of your life, you're going to work for free. Hope you enjoy that, Sean. Yeah. So there's that, right? So when you guys send, even if it's $10, it is much appreciated, because we've been through periods where it's like, oh man, am I ever going to make money doing this again? Because this stuff costs. It costs a lot to run this show, a lot. So, well, we're not going to talk about that, because that's not why we're here. Could you please send money? No, we're not doing it. But when you do send it, much appreciated. All right, we're going to go on to the next one. Portland getting ready to prepare for a fiery election season. Tristan, here we go. Here's the intro. Steel doors, new riot squad, Portland, Oregon. They're preparing for a fiery election season. We're going to have some protesting. Are we going to have mostly peaceful protesting? Well, we all know what that means. Probably. Let's get into it. Here we go. All right. We are going to We're going to go back in time and we're going to watch some video from Andy No. I'm a huge Andy No fan. Guy took a milkshake to the head. He just got bludgeoned. He got just hammered on. That guy's lucky to be alive. Let's watch some Andy No video here. These were the mostly peaceful protests and the way that protesters were treating police at the time. So let's watch this footage. I've got a couple of quick videos for you here. How about if I have you guys help me watch it? What about that? So many buttons, so little time. Here we go. These are police officers ending a shift and walking to their cars and going home. How would you like to face this every single day in Portland? Have just these lunatics screaming obscenities at you. Another day, another dollar. Yeah, just let it bounce right off. No, you're going to hear some of this stuff and it's just going to, yeah.
Take your fucking fingers off the trigger, you 37%!
Unhinged. That's what these rioters are. Calling them anything else is an absolute lie. These were rioters. This was extremely violent. I'll get into it. So city leadership, let that happen. That is what, when you let that happen, here's our next video.
You fucking pussy!
There we go.
Hey, fuck you! Hey, fuck you!
That's a war zone. That's a straight up war zone. Somebody sent this to me that was a police officer many, many, many years in Portland and said, hey, here's a couple of clips in case you forgot what it was like. Just absolute violence. And Portland figures that they're going to have that again. So let's watch this video. This is a good one. This is Blair Best down from KGW News. She always has good reports.
Look closely. You can still see scars in the form of plywood on government buildings, left over from Portland protests 4 years ago.
Just how out of control it was. The whole city is going down. It kind of squashed any sort of folks wanting to come downtown, so it was not good.
Nobody anywhere in this country saw what Portland saw in 2020.
As an election season nears, the City and Police Bureau are preparing for the potential of more violence.
I hope that we don't ever see what we saw in 2020 again, but we need to have the tools and the people ready to navigate what may come.
Part of those tools, Aaron Schmautz with the Portland Police Association says, is creating a new team trained to respond to violent protests.
It's important that we have a structure in place.
If they do their job, it's a great thing, to help keep everybody safe.
The Bureau will be looking for 40 existing officers to volunteer. They'll do extra crowd control training and get a 6% pay raise each time they respond to a protest, costing the Bureau an additional $300.
You're going to volunteer for this nonsense here? Look at your screen. You want to deal with that? I don't think so, right? I mean, no.
$180,000 per year.
The pay piece of it is just the start. The next piece of the conversation is politically, how do we make sure that our officers have clear direction from our government?
Direction that was missing 4 years ago when a Portland police officer was indicted on a 4th-degree misdemeanor assault charge after hitting a photographer in the head with his baton during a 2020 protest. That charge was dismissed and he publicly apologized. This is Juan Chavez with the Oregon Justice Resource Center.
Coming out of 2020, several things happened. A lot of people were hurt and needed compensation, so they sued, and the city has now paid out over $1 million to protesters that they injured in that time. The Department of Justice got involved and ordered that the city do audits.
That audit found the Bureau needed more training and a designated crowd control unit, among other things.
More training is better training, I think, in a lot of people's eyes.
Like de-escalation techniques and finding alternative use of force.
The use of sticks or the use of batons or just the physical fighting between officers and the public, that is the last thing that we want.
Unless there's actual accountability measures that are built into this, if the officers who are involved in the 2020 protests do not volunteer or get involved in this, I don't see how this turns out anymore.
City Council is set to vote on this Wednesday as the community braces for what could come in the months ahead.
I would expect there's protests on both sides. It's like there's a lot
to
think about, and this election season will be very interesting.
My hope is that we go through this election season and we have healthy, robust conversations about our political differences, and we do that without the police even being present. That would be a healthy city.
You do it without poop bags being thrown at cops. You do it without frozen water bottles being thrown at cops, without bags of urine being thrown at cops, without lasers being pointed into cops' eyes. Yeah, flash bombs going off. Yeah, you do it peacefully on the sidewalk with your little stick going, whatever, right? So one of the things from this story is the reason the reason that Portland no longer has a rapid response team is because all 51 of them quit after that one cop was shown pushing and then whacking the stinky protester with his baton. The entire rapid response team quit just in protest over one of their own, basically for doing their job. Now, the incident, I know that police officer, he apologized, and let's go with this. That police officer apologized. When I went down there, I knowingly put myself and my son Brennan in a position where shenanigans were happening. You just knew it. You knew these crazy nut jobs were they're going to try and beat on the federal building because that's what they do. I mean, it's just this whole situation that's wildly out of control. Mayor Ted let it happen, wildly out of control. At one point in time, a group of these soccer moms show up. I've got video footage of it. They're all dressed in white. And you're like, what are you? I mean, they were showing solidarity with the protesters, right? With the stinky protesters. And again, they're stinky because they don't take showers. They don't bathe. I don't know what it is about that. It's just my natural organic scent. It smells so good. It's like, take a bath, take a shower, do whatever. I'll hose you down, get out the fire hose. But when you're in these situations, and I explained to my son, Brennan, hey, if things really go sideways and we're in this escalated event, go all the way to the back. Just get all the way to the back. Because we were prepared I'd watched enough video to know, hey, cop comes running at you, they don't know who you are. They just know that you're not a cop and you're probably involved, and they may take a poke at you because this is war. It's literally war. So somebody gets mowed over by a big cop because it's literally a wartime situation going on. I'm sorry. You just got to be prepared for that. Even if I am not a protester, if I'm just some, middle-aged man with his 22-year-old kid, taking some footage because he wants to get the views on YouTube. You got to know that if a cop comes at you, that's fair game. It's fair game because it is literally a wartime scenario with, fireworks going off and gas, whatever. There was tear gas let go at the day I was there. And so, of course, my son, he followed instructions and he ran to the back. I went kind of more lateral forward because that's where the good footage was. And yeah, it was quite an event. But knowing that if a cop came up to you, whatever happens, happens. Because oftentimes these protesters, they are trespassing, number one, destruction of property, all kinds of just shenanigans going on. And so when a cop takes a run at you, well, you know what? That might happen. But in Portland, they paid out over $1 million for ridiculousness like that. And now, as a result, Portland is preparing, and that's what today's podcast is on. Portland is trying to get the band back together. They're trying to get the rapid response team back together. And good luck doing that. Because what sane person, you're number one, you're a cop in Portland already. You've already got enough liability, right? City may or may not have your back. Who knows? You got a bunch of whacked out homeless people on drugs. Yeah, it's not enough of a roll of the dice. Well, let's put you on the rapid response team. We'll just see how this works out. So they're saying they're looking for 40 of those officers. Now they had 51 that all quit when that one officer was brought up on charges for doing his job during a riot, right? And then you've got these other losers in Portland. Well, if they just do their job. They were doing their job. They're sparkles. They were doing their job. So let them do their job and they'll bring this under control. But that was part of the problem is Mayor Ted was down there, with his arm around the protesters. And it was just this big, huge circle jerk. And, it was just craziness. So, of course, I took my kid to that. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Yeah, those are some of the good memories I have because Brennan's no longer with us. So, all right, let's get into this one. Portland building barricade around federal courthouse to protect against riots. And that is the building that we were at. It was literally the federal courthouse. And it had a new fence put up when I was there. And they demolished it in the first 2 hours. I had a live stream going down in Portland. And I cut the live stream off because you could just tell that the folks around us, it was just loaded with Antifa. And a big group of Antifa folks, yeah. There weren't enough just normal people. And I didn't want to put my kid in any more danger than I actually needed to, even though he's physically capable of handling himself. But could you imagine that one? My son gets, mauled at a protest. Yeah, we just thought it was some good quality father-son time. And it was. But it was also dangerous, and it was very, very violent, as protests are. These are not peaceful. That whole peaceful narrative, absolute nonsense. Portland is building stainless steel barricades and forming a new crowd control police unit to protect against violent political protests ahead of the 2024 presidential election. The city is almost finished building 7 large hinged barricades that can drop down in front of the Marco Hatfield U.S. Courthouse West entrance, according to the Portland Tribune. The site faced large protests and sometimes violent riots for months following the death of Fentanyl Floyd in May 2020. These measures are a first step toward hardening facilities and can be implemented relatively quickly when compared with more significant measures to redesign and renovate entrances, perimeter spaces, and interior public spaces, which will take more funding and longer to complete. All right, so what are they talking about? Let's take a look. I think, here we go. All right, this is what we're looking at. So these are the stone columns, the concrete columns supporting that exterior kind of walkway, covered walkway area. And there are doorways back over here in this section here. Let's give you a little yellow button. Yeah, there we go. There's my yellow button. So there's a doorway here. Do you remember? Maybe you remember there was a doorway that was opened up by one of the protesters, a big dude, and he had a hammer. He had like a construction hammer, and he was just going to pop whomever came out. And that didn't happen. But the federal agent that came out, they de-armed him and then just took him down. But so this is that area. So what you've got going on is they are securing the exterior with these drop-down hinged stainless steel barricades. and basically creating an extra force area in between the exterior entrance of the building and the sidewalk, because then this is all sidewalk. And when I was there, the sidewalk was about here in the corner. There was a big, I don't know, 8 or 10 foot steel fence around this whole thing. It was brand new that weekend. And they demolished it and like that. Just, you know, it takes however long to build something and then a couple of minutes to tear it down. You know, a bunch of adults tearing down a barricade in front of a federal building. They should just be ashamed of themselves. They should just get a tattoo that says loser on their forehead, because that's what they are. Portland's months-long fentanyl Floyd protests became national news when rioters began shooting projectiles, including rocks, ball bearings, and industrial-grade fireworks at the building, causing $1.6 million in damages, Axios reported. The sighting was, they actually created, they had up the fire retardant sighting, because otherwise it would catch on fire with the fireworks they were aiming at this federal building. In what world does that happen? Trump should have sent in, at the time I said Trump shouldn't send in the feds. Now I believe National Guard, absolutely. Let's just see what happens. It would take about 1 minute for the National Guards to round up, do their thing, and get the stinky protesters out of there, right? I mean, it'd just be no match. It was like when I was in Seattle and I was watching them take down CHOP at the end of CHOP on July 1st, I think it was, 2020. It did not take long for whatever it was, 160 Seattle uniformed police officers to just march through. Yeah, you're under arrest. You got to get out of here. You're gone. Your tent's gone. Out you go. Out you go. I mean, it happened like that. So if the political will is there, it happens. If it's not, and that's what the representative of the police agency was saying, is that, you know, it's one thing to build, you know, the stainless steel barricade on the exterior. It's another thing to put together the rapid response team. And they've got a new name for that. I'm not going to learn it because I don't care. Put back the RR, rapid response team. But they're having a hard time filling positions on that rapid response team, is my understanding. Of the 40 positions they need, it's my understanding that they had 4 people apply. And, you know, why would people apply? All right, yeah, that sounds like a good, I mean, the money, 6% increase. Then you have that offset by the fact that you could lose your life during one of these mostly peaceful protests, that your mayor Ted, does not have your back on because he's down there glad handling the stinky protesters. Following the 2020 protests, Portland Police Bureau, previous crowd control team, and the city faced lawsuits, with some community members even receiving settlements after their homes were caught in clouds of tear gas. One of the complaints in Seattle, in CHOP, one female said that her monthly cycle had been interrupted because of so much tear gas that her physical composition had been altered. I don't know if that was true, but there's a lot of tear gas because, you know what? There's a lot of shenanigans. Shenanigans for days, right? And in Portland, it was even longer than that. It wasn't just, you know, a few weeks. It was months and months. The new barricades resemble airplane hangar doors with shielded screens on top. The project was estimated to cost $4.5 million and also includes renovations to the building's entryways, the Portland Tribune reported. What's interesting is they always go after the federal building, right? Just say, I got to take down the federal building. It's, you know, filled with feds and they're terrible. And do you remember the news stories? And I literally went the weekend, my son and I went down the weekend to Portland, Joe from Seattle, the weekend that Trump was threatening to send in the National Guard, because the big news story was that these vans were rolling in and they were scooping up the protesters and they were taking them to locations unknown. And, you know, people were just being abducted. We didn't know what was happening. We just, you know, no clue. And it was just so overboard. What was happening is that there was surveillance up top, you know, higher levels, cameras looking down on all of this ridiculous shenanigans going on the sidewalk in front of the federal building. And they were apprehending people. You know, feds were apprehending people smashing on their building. Huh. Is that out of line? No, it's not. So that's the kind of ridiculousness you had. But the mainstream media painted it as, oh, the feds are overstepping their boundaries. You know, where are they taking these people? What are they doing with these people? Are they taking them off site? What's happening? Are they being tortured? Are they being interrogated? Now, they're being questioned for breaking the law. Huh. And you know what? That's kind of exactly what law enforcement does. Interesting. Weird. But anyway, off topic there, right? Additionally, the Portland City Council on Wednesday approved creating a new Portland Police Bureau crowd control team unit. Team members who would respond to protests and other public order events will receive a 6% pay raise, which will cost an additional $380,000 annually. Now, another one of the items that's within this whole deal of Portland trying to protect itself is Portland does not have the relationships, the mutual relationships with other law enforcement in the area. Usually what happens is you team up with, sheriff's office or police from an adjoining city in case you have a big issue, you can rely on them. Hey, can you send over some guys and gals? Because we need backup here. We've got this big thing going on. But Portland's leadership burns so many bridges that nobody wants to help out Portland if things get tough. So Portland doesn't have a rapid response team. They're trying to hunker down and cover up the physical buildings, but they also don't have relationships with adjoining law enforcement in case the you-know-what really hits the fan. So that's what some of these preparations are for, because we think the shenanigans are going to happen come election season. And I would say there's a high probability that happens, because in 2016 and 2020, we had shenanigans. And why wouldn't we have them again? I think all of the stinky protesters will move from Atlanta off that one guy's property we just talked about, and they'll come to Portland. Why wouldn't they? There's a chance Trump might win. Orange man bad. Let's protest. Let's protest. Stinky, stinky protesters. I do not like the protesters. The new unit replaces the former rapid response team, whose approximately 50 members resigned in June of 2021 after one of its officers was charged with assault over accusations that he struck a protester's head with his baton in August of 2020. Mayor Ted Wheeler had said creating a new public order team within Portland Police Bureau is a must-have for Portland heading into the election season. Well, Mayor Ted, I would say yes, it is. But I would say, more importantly, it is required because you let things get so out of control in the summer of love. You thought it was just going to be the greatest thing ever, along with Jenny Durkin, our mayor at the time here in Seattle. It's got to be the summer of love till 2 black kids got murdered. And then the stinky protesters went on a rampage for 100 and however many days. I was asking another man in blue how many days that was, and we couldn't. Is it like 150, something like that? I mean, it's insane if you think about it, because that meant that Mayor Ted was basically complicit in these protesters just going out and having the purge night after night after night after night. So when I was there with my son, I asked the person at the front desk of the hotel we were staying at, it was like 5 blocks away from where the purge was happening. And they were able to give me very detailed instructions on, go up this street, and you hang a lefty there, and you walk right into it. It happens every night. Around nightfall, at that time, it was summer. It gets dark around 9 o'clock. And by 9:30, 10 o'clock, that's when, stuff was starting to really go on. And I shot one live stream, and I shut it down after 15 minutes because when you're doing a live stream with the camera, you can't focus on what's going on around you. And I realized there were some bad hombres there. And it was one of those scenes where you're like, these people are going to pop off and I need to be able to have head on a swivel. So I actually filmed all that ridiculousness and put up a video, which got demonetized by you-know-who, because something about tear gas. They don't like tear gas. They don't want people talking about tear gas. Don't want people talking about, it's not that bad. It's a violent situation. I don't know. You know what I mean? It was like just reporting the news that's going on in a major metropolitan city, in downtown in Oregon. That's what I'm doing. We don't have anything crazy here, but that is what's happening. So will Portland be an utter you-know-what show again? High probability. If I were a betting man, I'd say odds are greater than 50-50. You'll have some kind of protest. I guess what it comes down to is who is ahead in the polls going into it, because if there's a high probability that things go Orange Man bad way, his direction, there will be some protesting happening. That will happen for sure, because they will not be pleased. They will not be pleased. Deportations are going to happen just left and right. The craziness will ensue, right? Or the sanity, depending on your point of view. So I think Portland, it could be in play. Seattle will be in play as well. We'll have the dirty, stinky protesters come out, take to the streets, F the police, no justice, no peace. That ridiculousness again, they'll probably have to come up with some new chants because they got to, you can't use the recycled ones all the time. No pay, no stay. That's the good protest that came out of the Jimmy protest that I covered in Bellevue here a couple of weekends ago. No pay, no stay. Doesn't get any more simple than that, does it? Not as catchy as take to the streets, F the police, no justice, no peace, but effective nonetheless. Plus that other one is just so wrong. So who are you going to call when something bad happens to you when you're saying, F the police? Yeah, that's tricky, right? So Portland, yeah, it's on alert. Got stuff going on. All right, that's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. I'd love to have you subscribe, do all that YouTube stuff, and I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now. Live stream people, don't go anywhere. We're still talking. We still got stuff we're going on about. See what you guys are talking about. Harsh the vibe of a nice dope high. Chuck Norris Gun Club. Good to see you here. Welcome. Yeah, harsh the vibe of a nice dope high. I was feeling really good, and the cops came along, and they just jerked me back to reality. To reality. So funny. Most of Gen Z Americans loathe structure because they had so little structure being raised by single moms. And you know what? I'm not so sure if it's single moms or just that generation. You know what I mean? It just seems like the more kids are out there. But I do Generation Z, for whatever reason, they can't work their way out of a wet paper bag. I don't know what the deal is. And I don't know if it's single moms or just computers or technology or cell phones. But, nobody wants these hard jobs. Nobody wants any physical labor job. Nobody wants to work hard. Nobody wants to try and get ahead. They want to all try and game the system. And, I just want to be an influencer. Oh, good luck with that. It's pretty hard. And you got to work really hard. You can't just throw up a little content and just see what happens. And you can, but you're going to be like all the other millions of content creators that just go absolutely nowhere. So agreed that, Generation Z, it does not have the work ethic of even millennials. Let's put it that way. And then you start to work that backwards. And as a Generation X individual with baby boomer parents, these comparisons of, and then you got the greatest generation in there. It seems like each generation, as we go on in history, just gets a little bit weaker, right? I just can't really work it out. Yeah. I want to say that Generation X is one of the last legit generations from the standpoint of knowing, right from wrong. Got a little bit of, that doesn't make any sense. And you got guys like me doing news for reasonable people. I mean, the reason I'm doing this is because there are so many stories out there that I was just like, hey, somebody should talk about that, because this stuff is absolutely mind-blowingly stupid. These things shouldn't be happening. You shouldn't have a situation in a major town where you have to batten down the federal building because those people should be arrested and put in jail. But that's not what we're doing. We're just not doing that. We're just like, let them be. They're mostly peaceful protesters. I saw I saw Kamala Harris, our border czar, was meeting with the president of Guatemala this week, maybe even today. And, you know, I know I'm jumping all over the board here, but you've just got so much ridiculous stuff going on that it's like Guatemala. Oh, yeah, we need to get to the root causes of why these illegals are coming over the border. Well, how about you just secure the border? Call it good. What they're doing down in Guatemala, you know, you can't control all that. But if you want to try and do that, no, that's literally what you've got going on. Kind of a little bit day late, dollar short, right? Day late, dollar short for Kamala Harris. I don't even know it. What is her job? What does she even do, right? What does she even do? I don't think I need the sparkly yellow button, but we're going to. My little niece and nephew are 16 and 15. What generation is that? That's Generation Z, is it not? Generation Y is younger than that, and millennials are before that. Generation Z, yeah. Yeah, and Scorch, you're right. People did hide, you know, their parents' divorce, or I think there was a lot of a shame associated with that. But now it's like, hey, were your parents married? Yeah, they were. They're divorced. And people are, oh, okay. Yeah, at least they were married, right? Nobody's getting married anymore. Just, shack up, have kids. It'll work out fine. Yeah. Let's talk about this one. Nope, we already did that one. I meant to hit this one. All right. So a lot of you have sent me this video. It begins. Entire New York City mall closes over theft. Tristan, we're not going to do this as a full-on podcast. So if you want to just record this one, cut it up and stick it on the private channel, that'd be fine. Let's do that. I won't do an intro. You just stick it on there. It'll be all good. So, okay. So a ton of you guys have sent me this video from Cash Jordan, and it's a podcast that I did, and it is this one. And let's watch the video. We're going to, so this is Fulton Center. This is in New York City, over the top of New York City's busiest metro train stations. And it's got a shopping mall that is dying. It's absolutely dying. And so here's how Cash Jordan starts this video.
We're talking about the Fulton Center in Lower. We're talking about the Fulton Center in Lower Manhattan. There's a mall inside. The operator says crime has gotten so bad there, they are breaking the lease and closing down shops. But the MTA says, not so fast.
So this here is one of the newest malls in New York City. It opened just 10 years ago, cost over $1 billion to build, but now it's closing because of crime.
From smash and grabs to...
It is not closing. This mall is not closing. A lot of other circumstances happened, and Cash Jordan did an amazing job with this video. But the one thing that I would say is details are everything, right? Because this kind of impacts how he projects this video. And I have no problem with the video other than the mall ain't closing. It looks bad, and it's got a lot of businesses that are leaving it, but he explains all of those reasons and does a great job.
Mobs of thieves, retail theft is rampant.
The shops are supposed to be part of Fulton Center's appeal, but something's happened. Most of the shops are gone.
Shoplifters are unafraid when they come to the stores. They feel it's their right to take whatever they want.
It's a beautiful place, but it could be a little more well kept.
Homelessness is part of the reason that Westfield, the mall operator, wants out.
Yeah, I guess the homeless issue can become an issue at some point because of how mental health is kicking in.
When we catch someone shoplifting and we call the police, it's a very slow response. And it's very difficult to detain someone because we don't want to have an altercation at the store.
The MTA is the landlord here. Its leaders told us they have confidence in the NYPD to deal with the crime, and they want Westfield to stay put.
This is the reason why.
That's a pretty good breaking place. Okay, so the premise is it begins. Entire New York City mall closes over theft. Well, in kind of working through this whole situation, this is a landlord-tenant issue. What you've got, if you got Westfield basically rents the entire mall from, or the entire building from the Metro Transit Authority, from New York City. And then they are responsible for bringing in tenants, and then they make whatever they keep, right? And they are basically saying, hey, this entire mall is such a you-know-what show that we want out of our lease. We want out of our lease. And Cash Jordan, he did a really good job covering why this mall is notorious for shoplifters. Traffic flow is horrible. You got all these people coming off the subway, stealing stuff. It's super easy. They got like 5 or 6 different exits they can just run out of. Whereas there's a nearby mall that Westfield is also managing that has a lot of high-end stores. It's mainly filled. There aren't the vacancies that you have. And it's because that one is designed so much better. And then there's also the issue that I'm going to talk about, which is Westfield blasted for bungling leasing at Fulton Center where storefronts remain vacant. So what you've got is a situation where the mall isn't closing, but, you know, Cash Jordan got 2.2 million views on this. So I can justify that for 2.2 million. But the issue is the mall isn't closing. It's not closed. That's not the issue. The issue is that the operator, Westfield, wants out because crime has gotten so bad. And one of the main differences between the Westfield with Fulton Center that we're talking about versus the other mall that Westfield manages nearby is that one, you've got New York Police Department managing the Westfield Mall. And on the other one, it is on the border of New Jersey and New York City. So you've got the Port Authority. You've got Port Police there. Port Police haven't been defunded. Port Police got plenty of them. So they are protecting a much better transit hub that has a mall attached to it, but it's designed wildly different. And so the one that we're talking about here, Fulton Center, it's got a terrible design. It's understaffed because you don't have enough New York City cops. It's just a perfect situation for people to come in and rob stuff. Haagen-Dazs just left, but it's got an anchor tenant that's paying all the bills. So you've got this kind of wonky situation where we're seeing a ton of video out there just saying, hey, Fulton Center is all closing. And it's not. It's just not. Westfield Corporation, which wants out of its Fulton Center lease with the MTA, is probably right that crime and poor security are chasing out some retail tenants. But it's also true that the subway station's donut-domed shopping atrium at Broadway and Fulton has been a flop since it was opened in 2014. Parent company Westfield said in 2022 that it planned to unload most or all of its U.S. shopping centers. But it's not unloading the other one a few blocks away, I believe, that is running really well because its design and the way that they have traffic flow with the transit there, it's kind of out of the way and you got to go through a series of doors. And to steal something within the mall in this other one, you're going to have to run down this long hallway, up a set of escalators, down another hallway. And you've got Port Authority police just loaded up in there. So you don't have it at the other one. Whereas this mall, the management company is saying, we do not want to manage this bad boy at all. Now, they're not going to shut it down because it's owned by the city. The city owns the property. It's not going anywhere. You're just going to have this situation where, hey, doesn't look like anything's open in here. Oh, it's not, but there's enough to cover the mortgage, I guess, or the city owns it outright. I don't know. I don't know what the background is. Didn't look up the tax records. Don't really care because this is kind of more the story, right? So retail brokers who didn't want to be named blamed Westfield for bungling the store leasing at Fulton since the get-go, as it has on larger scale at World Trade Center, where it owns the retail space in the Oculus and office towers where codes of storefronts remain vacant. So we're talking about that other space. We're saying that Westfield has basically, they've screwed up the leasing on it. And that's why you've got so few properties within the project leased out. But then you've got the whole issue. You've got crime, you've got shoplifting, you got homeless people running around. You got 1 million people from the metro on and off all day, and people don't want to have a retail space that's subjected to that. So that is also, let's go with this view. So that is also, kind of plays with the equation. But, none of this information is making it to the other videos, right? Westfield's policy of not hiring local retail brokers alienated the talent it needed to lure even middle market stores to Fulton, they say. I Okay. All right. But so you had local brokers. How are you going to be able to overcome the issue that is traffic flow, that is crazy people getting off the subway? We got to remember the governor of New York just turned New York National Guard loose in the subways, right? I mean, they literally just, all right, you guys go for it. Because there's been so many incidents of violence in the subway system. In these malls are literally on top of these hub centers, right? So you've kind of got this situation. Who would want to sign a lease right there when you've got National Guard running around? Doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? So this whole thing of local brokers couldn't even, even middle market stores to Fulton. Well, half of what's called level 2. This is on the Fulton Mall. One of 4 floors connected by a confusing maze of stairs, escalators, and elevator. It's been vacant since the opening. So this project was just doomed from the beginning. It's a piece of crap. It's a piece of crap because the city built it as a transit center, not a shopping. So the fact that 3/4 of it is empty, it's not shocking. But it's not in the process of being closed. This is just how it is. And this is probably just how it is moving forward until somebody can figure out, okay, I'm going to close off that exit entrance, because there's literally like 5 of them. So if somebody wants to shoplift, boom, off they go, right? They can just exit stage left without much problem. So who wants to have a high-end store in that type of environment where you've just got literally signs pointing to the exit saying, steal some stuff and run off into the street? Shake Shack is the building's only large retail tenant. The rest are fast food spots like Krispy Kreme, Auntie Anne's, and until recently bolted, Haagen-Dazs, like in a suburban mall food court. And the Haagen-Dazs, Cash Jordan did indicate that they had been ejected. They're just, boom, there was a notice, I think this notice right here, meaning they were evicted from their site, probably for non-payment. Despite the retail crisis, Westfield has an apparent cash cow above the stores. Got this workspace, 50,000 square feet. So they're doing okay. The thing isn't going to close. It's just, it sounds better saying that because, who doesn't like to hear Metal Leo say closed? All the stores in Lombard Street are closed, right? I mean, it's more impactful. They're all closed? Huh, interesting. Whereas there's always more to the story. That's my point to this. When we took the elevator to the mysterious 4th floor, industrious employees twice tried to chase us from the public landing outside its door. Maybe they have something to hide. Or maybe they don't want you there poking around with the camera, writing some notes down in your little notebook. Who are they? What are they doing? Don't really know. Get them out of here. We don't know who they are. Hey, could you leave? Could you just leave the premises? Oh, they got something to hide, right? So bottom line is, and I don't take issue with other people's work very often, but you got to kind of at times figure out, all right, this story doesn't make sense. There's something going on here. And in a lot of the stories that I'm seeing, something I can tell you about is when you've got like somebody that's like 77 years old and their home gets foreclosed on them and they say, I never took out a loan. I never, knew what was going on. There's always way more to the story. Like this indication of, well, maybe they're not really working the tenants the way that they should. They're not hiring local talent. So therefore, they're not getting the right tenants in this mix. That's why it's all empty. Yeah, that might be a little part to it. But on top of the fact that, these stores are being robbed on the regular, you've got crazy people running around. You got people on drugs. You got the homeless. You got all kinds of stuff going on. And because these malls are located on the top of a transit center, they're open 24/7, meaning you've got 24/7 of shenanigans, right? You've just got that going on. It's happening on the regular. So who wants to have a storefront, say a Louis Vuitton, with a whole bunch of expensive stuff in there? Who wants to have that kind of a shop where people can just literally, take the subway in, run out, and off the streets they go? Yeah, you got to have greater security. You got to have greater security, and it's got to feel better because people shopping for Louis Vuitton, they don't want to feel like they're in a fishbowl. Everybody's looking at them. And the second they step out with that bag, they're going to get jacked. And at the other mall that's also run by Westfield, that's not the feeling. And Cash Jordan did a really good job on kind of showing that. But when you hear stuff, don't believe everything that you hear. Understand that there may be some underlying stories. And going back to the 77-year-old that loses their house to foreclosure, there is always more background. And typically people just ignored foreclosure notice after foreclosure notice, phone calls. They just ignored everything. And then all of a sudden went, oh, what happened? What happened? We don't really know what happened. Now, something happened, and it didn't just happen overnight typically. And there's always more to the story. There's always typically another angle. And if it sounds too good to be true, then if it doesn't make sense, then that's when you call it out. And you're like, no, it's not all closing, but a lot of it is closed. All right, you could go with that, but that's not as exciting. Whole damn thing is closed down. Yeah, it's all that's what it is. So it begins, right? You see so many videos. So it begins, and you're like, what's beginning? What's happening? What's going on? I need to know. Play. Cash Jordan, more power to him. He's got 2.2 million views on that so far. That's monetized. That's monetized right there. That guy's making some good money. He makes great content, but this was a podcast that I had done earlier, and I just wanted to throw this in there because it's one of those things where it's like, okay, don't believe everything you see or hear. Have your own judgment, kind of make your own, decision-making process of, does this make sense? Does this pass the muster test? And oftentimes when I see these videos, and a lot of videos that you guys send me, I'm like, this makes no sense at all. There is something wildly fishy about this. And when you start to do just a little bit of a deep dive on something like this, because my story on this was literally, my podcast was Westfield, pretty big management company. They're dipping out because crime has gotten so bad. Nobody wants to rent in there. And as a result, they are obligated to a lease at XYZ amount. They are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on graffiti removal, property crime. That the project is just getting beat up, and they're saying, we want out. We're willing to take the lawsuit. We know you guys, Metro Transit Authority, is going to sue us. So we're willing to take that beat down in court, but whatever it takes to get out of this lease, because things are so bad in this particular mall. That to me is the story. Not that it's closing, not that it's being closed, because nobody's closing it. They're keeping it open. They want to rent out space. It's just not a real conducive environment to do that at the moment. And they're going to have to change some things up. But that is the story, right? That a management company is willing to risk big lawsuit and, from a city and say, we're out of here because things have gotten so bad. All right. Tristan, that's it for me on this one. I'm going to do the outro. Do whatever you need to when you put this thing together. Or I'll do a kind of I'll do a limited outro. What am I even talking about? I'm all. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now. Live stream, people. See what you got going on. Scoot over here. Mike's in the way. Let's scroll up. See what you guys are talking about. See what's going on a Taco Tuesday. Carol, I can't wait till President Trump takes office. Do you guys think that'll happen? Things are looking that way. I don't want to jinx it. I'm not really talking about it a lot because 2022, we were supposed to have the red wave. That didn't end up happening, right? Did say that Trump got his, and it just, far left was so worked up. Got his, $454 million bond down to 175. I was watching him last night coming out of that other ridiculous trial. And he was saying, somebody asked him, what kind of assets are you going to use that? And Trump turns around and goes, cash. Cash. Typical Trump. It was so great. Cash. Yeah, Scorch, they have confidence that the New York Police Department can control the thefts. What are they thinking about? It's like, hello, McFly, anybody home? Are you home? Have you seen what's going on in your other shops? New York Police Department isn't controlling anything. And that's why the other mall was doing so well, because it's literally got Port Authority police, and they aren't playing games. And they've also got the... down in the actual subways, they've got the New York National Guard. Imagine, hey, you know what? We want you to take public transport, but yeah, don't mind the guy with the M16 over there, because we got some Looney Tunes on the subway. But ride it anyway. Should be fine. It'll be all good. How about we arrest the criminals? Diane Hasher, 100% agreed. Why aren't we doing that? You know why I think we're not doing that? Because the statistics of whom we're arresting would it'd be kind of racist. Oof. Oof. I think that's why we're not doing it. Plus, we've just got this whole, we're not arresting anybody for anything. Let everybody go because, the incarceration didn't work last time. So this is what we're doing. And it is really not working now, right? It's really not working now. See, growing reasonables even in Austin. That's interesting. Sunday young couple worked hours clearing a storage unit. Okay. Stuff in Austin going on. Violent perps. That's another issue. Michael S. What is the point of cops getting them after the DAs let everyone go? No jail time ever. You got to have both sides, right? You got to have police, and then you got to have the political will on these, district attorneys to basically go after them. And I think in so many cases, the cops have given up because they know that all their efforts are for naught, because nobody's going to, less than half of the cases are getting prosecuted. And then the conviction rate is even lower than that. And when we know that to be an absolute fact in Portland, where you've got Mike Schmidt, he's just not prosecuting a lot of criminal activity. And the criminals know it. And so they're just doing their own thing. I mean, why shouldn't they? They've been given a hall pass. New York City is a Mad Max zone. That was a great movie. It really was. But agreed, Scorch. Prison will be more fearsome when the prisons no longer feed people. All right. Should we give them minimum rations? I've been hearing food is so bad in prison, but when you're getting free food and free, roof over your head, beggars can't be choosers, right? New York Police Department dance team. I saw them. It was interpretive dance. I don't think I want to see that. Cops dancing. I mean, I'm not opposed to cops dancing, but yeah, that's probably not my thing either. All right. Let's see if you guys got anything else that's going on here. Do we have 7 shenanigans? Didn't see it. It only seemed like a couple to me because I just kind of say it, right? And it just comes out. How about that bridge collapsing? Wow. Big boat ran into it, right? Big shipping container boat ran into it and just took out that support. Man, I think it was there like 20 people that went in the drink. They're still searching for either 4 or 6. That was horrible. That bridge carries a lot of, it's like a port bridge. Yeah, it's just got a lot of port traffic. And now that that's shut down, Baltimore, that's not going to be good. Yeah, that was a huge news story this morning, first thing. All right. All right, you know what, guys? I'm going to go do a bunch of real estate stuff. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll do another live stream on Thursday. But again, appreciate it. And if you're here on the live stream and you want to check out on the morning show, that's what I call. That's also early evening or early afternoon for a lot of you on the East Coast. We've got that whole East Coast, West Coast thing going on. Thank you so much for being here, and I will catch up with you guys on the next one. Bye for now. I gotta go stop recording.